All right. So as you're doing this model, the one that we've gone through last class, and one we're going to try to finish today, we may not, but get as far as we can today. As you're going through this, my primary intent isn't that you're learning to use Revit. It is that you understand how things go together. That's most important. So if Revit's driving you crazy, and you're more comfortable in Rhino, I'm okay with that. You can export your Revit model to your Rhino, however that works. I don't know how to do that, but I know that you can. So if that's best for you, that's okay with me. I'm most interested that you understand how things go together. No tricks here. It's just just trying to make sure that you understand how the bones are, so that when we start to get into how to waterproof stuff and how to make things keep keep heat loss to a minimum and that kind of thing, that you understand the framework of all of that, so you know what you have to detail against. So um, that's the purpose of this. I use Revit because that's the tool I'm most comfortable with, and it's the tool that my office uses to put working drawings together, construction documents, those kinds of things for the for the for the clients and for the bank and for the contractors, most importantly. So with that behind us, what I think I'll do is share my um, my screen that has Revit on it, and we'll get moving. I've done a few small things, but most of it was repeating what we did last time, just to catch up a little bit and have a more complete model. So I'll share my screen with you now. All right, can you see my Revit screen? All right. Now, I won't. I'm pretty sure that if you send something in the chat, I won't see it. So if you have something that I'm going too fast, or all of a sudden you can't hear me or something weird like that, then please just holler, just say something verbally so that I pay attention. Otherwise, I'll get in my zone and just keep cranking. You should be able to see what's called a gable end framing um, on this screen right now. So hopefully that's visible for you. We're going to talk about how to frame a gable end that has a overhang from the wall, and that kind of thing. So it's a fairly simple solution, but quite often we don't even think about it until you do an exercise like this, or until the framer calls you out and says, "Hey, what do you want us to do with this?" At that point, you might have troubles. I'm going to turn off my camera in case there's anybody wandering around behind me. Um, so I want to kind of catch you up with where we are right now. What I've done is I placed these framed walls on uh, both sides. We did them on the east side or the west side of the building here, and we framed around the windows. We framed around the door here. I mirrored those walls, and they're on this side now, but I have not framed around this door, and I have not framed around this window. So that's why these studs go all the way through. But I probably won't take the time to do that, since we demonstrated it last week, or last class period earlier this week. What I'd rather do is talk about how the rest of this is framed. So I'm working on this gable end right here. I'm going to hide this wall, and as you can see, we've got um, we've got some. I've got the door framed in, and we framed it differently than we did the door downstairs, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute. Here is the beam. Remember in class we discussed a couple of different ways to frame the roof. We've decided to frame it with a center ridge beam, and we're going to bird mouth these rafters so that they sit on top of the top plates and they rest against this ridge beam. Now we have to hold the ridge beam up at each end and in the middle, and the we're not going to worry about the other end. We're not going to worry about the middle, because the middle is actually, we're going to lag this ridge beam to the concrete mass that goes up, and we may talk about that, but that's not the priority right this minute. Right now, what's happening is we're letting this ridge beam punch right through the wall, and what we're having to do is get a pair of studs. We'll just call them for now, we'll call them a stud pack or a stud bundle. There are two studs that hold up this ridge beam. Now, we can do this with steel, we can do it with a timber, we can do it with microlams right now, just in principle. The reason that we're doing it this way is just to just to continue to use the same materials that we have in Revit so far. And this is a typical way of framing a ridge. So we've got a stud pack that's the equal width of the ridge above, and then we have kind of a king stud on either side we can hold the entire assembly together with, so that the ridge beam doesn't topple over or fall off of this thing. Now it's looking like kind of a cool thing right now, but you're going to see in a minute that I have overlooked something, and we've got to redesign it. So typically, when you want to sandwich a beam between two studs, and you want enough studs underneath it to give it full bearing, a full width of bearing, no space. So now what happens then is that point load then comes downward, and there's an opening right here. So we can't take that all the way to the foundation. So what we have to do is transfer that. We're going to transfer that load over to two other columns. Now, my recommendation is that if we've got 4 columns here, 4 studs up here that are holding that beam up, that we have 4 below it, that we don't start narrowing down the number of supports. That if anything, they're going to increase. If we have to make a decision, we're going to make it bigger, not smaller. And this isn't engineering. These are just rules of thumb. This is not engineering. Let me repeat. I'm not trying to engineer this. But when an engineer gives you something and you see that it's getting narrower as it goes down, say, hey, there's something wrong here. And so that you can call it out. Occasionally an engineer is going to make a mistake or overlook something. So you're watching each other's work, and you're in a partnership to make things work together. So now, instead of having 1 jack stud, now I have 2, because I want to take this load and transfer it down. Okay, that's why I did that. It may be that the engineer says, "No, you don't need 2. It's fine with 1." That's okay. But until then, I want to make sure that I've got this taken care of. Then we come down to this beam, and you're going to see again that this load is going to hit this door, and this one is going to hit this door, and we're going to have to transfer again down below. I don't want to focus on that right now. What I'd rather do is take care of this gable end, but I wanted to show you the principles of that and how that kind of works. And since if this load comes down on this header and transfers to either side and goes down further, then you can imagine down below it's going to do the same thing. We're just going to keep transferring it down, hit the top of a header, and then move out to the sides. Now, I want to show you what's different about this header. Because this header carries a point load that's different than a bearing wall, like the headers that we did down below, for example. You remember this header here is kind of a C shape, because the reason we did that is because we want to put insulation in here, and this works just fine. But there is no point load sitting on top of it. On this one, we do have a point load, and so we're doing pretty much a solid header. And traditionally, in the old days, this is how almost every header was designed. And still, you're going to see some of this in framing too. There are 3 2-bys side by side, and they're 1/2 inch apart. Now, I didn't put a 3-dimensional piece of plywood between them, but typically that's what would happen. For a structural header, we're going to pack this out. We're going to have, on a 2x6 wall, we're going to have 1.5 inch stock. We're going to have 3 2-bys next to each other with a 1/2 inch gap. We're going to fill that gap with 1/2 inch plywood. Okay, so these, what appear to be spaces right now, will not be spaces in real life if this is a structural header. There are alternatives to that. We could put an I-beam in there with a piece of steel. We could do a steel, hollow steel section if we wanted to, because those materials will bear more than wood will. But for now, we want to stick with this light wood framing, a triple header, and pack out the gaps with plywood. You don't have to model the plywood necessarily, but I want you to know that in your mind. Okay, so this whole assembly now has a double header, a double top plate, and a triple header. and this point load sitting on top of it, and that'll do the job. Okay, any questions about that? Those are the kinds of things I think you've probably already gone through in your structure classes or your technology classes, so I don't want to over discuss it, but this is how it might apply in a small project, a light wood framing project. Okay, now these two double plate right here needs to come downward. I have it too high. It needs to be at the bottom of our beams, or bottom of our rafters. So I'm going to see if I can just move it. I don't know if I can or not. I'm going to try. Okay, that seems to have worked. So I can get rid of that stud, that one. Since I'm in elevation view, I can actually trim these flat here. So I'm going to do that real fast. I'm going to go to the architecture tab and the reference plane, and I'm going to choose this top piece right here as my reference, and it leaves this dash line that doesn't print. And then I can cut those top plates. Come over here to cut this top plate to that line, and then this top plate to that line, so that the bottom of those are at that line. Okay. So I'm going to place another reference line or reference plane here at the bottom of these guys, so that I can trim these studs now to go to the bottom. So I'll go to modify, cut a stud to that line, cut a stud to that line, cut stud to that line. That stud wanted to be longer. So I have to, because when we do this, it wants to cut the short part off. So sometimes the short part is the one part you want to keep. Okay, so let's take a look at this in 3D, see how it looks. Yep, that's where we want it. Now I'm going to unconnect this one, uncut this one. Because I want this to go all the way up and sandwich both sides of that. And then these guys are going, this top plate's going to come right in here and stop here. So in this elevation view, I'll go to the architecture tab again, place another cut plane, go to modify, cut top plate right here, the other top plate right here. All right, so that's all trimmed out. Now, instead of redoing, I'm going to take these two top plates and mirror them over and see what happens. Hopefully we can keep both of them. To there, all I have to do now is place another cut plane, architecture, reference plane to here. Then I'm going to modify and cut my top plate to here and my top plate, my other top plate to here. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and attach a bunch of these guys because I've got to make sure that the top part, the part that I want to get rid of, is shorter than the part I want to keep. And so I have to kind of cut them off, almost a two-step process. So now I'm going to place another cut line down here at the bottom. So architecture, reference plane, bottom of the double top plate. Then I can trim these studs out at an angle. So cut stud to that line. I missed it. Stud to that line. Stud to that line. To that line. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and trim this out to just, not because I don't know if I have to or not. All right, let's look at this in 3D. Okay, now the reason that we had to do that, does anybody have any idea? Why is the top of this wall shorter than the top of the roof?
If we're putting a ceiling on top,
We're
like
going
under
to
the
put
rock.
yeah, we're going to put a ceiling in there. You're right about that. How do we frame the gable end? Let's see, I might have to look at this in a site plan view. Hide my roof real quick. These are my roof rafters. If I copy them, these rafters are 2x. They're not very aesthetically pleasing, so we're just going to cover them up probably with the ceiling, just like you're saying. So, and you can see that these two ridge beams are going to hit this big concrete mass, so we're going to anchor them to there, and then as it comes out here, we'll put another post in the front. But out here, what what is interesting out here though is we how do we get our roof that's going way out here to not fall off? How do we get it to do that? The way we're going to do it, and I've got to trim all of these. I'm going to go back and trim them all to those lines. But for right now, the question is, how do we how do we come across and hold up the roof that comes out here to this edge? I mean, how does a rafter going to float way out here? Is it going to work? Let's take a look at that and see if we think it will. Okay, this beam that I just a roof rafter that we just placed out here, that we can hang it off of this ridge beam because we've got the ridge beam secured here and it backspans a long ways. But how in the world do we do this? How do we hold this corner up over here? Understand the dilemma? There's a couple ways to do it, and one is we can take a beam and go out the top here and run a beam back over the top of this wall and out past the wall, just like we've done with the ridge, and it can hold it up. That's one way. Most of the framing around here, they do it a little bit differently, and I want to show you quickly how that works, um, so that because this will be what you see mostly. I'm going to take this guy right here and copy it. If I get to right there, I'm going to see if I can rotate this guy. All right. Okay. Now, if we have this kind of framing that goes out across, then it rests here and it cantilevers past. It's starting to make sense, isn't it? The remember the joist hangers we looked at that have the pocket at the bottom of them? The joist hangers we would also use here, but we would turn them upside down. The reason we would turn them upside down is because now we have a backward cantilever. There's too much space out past the fulcrum. So we have to hold this back end down instead of holding it up. So we have to turn the hanger upside down because when we push on the outside of when we push down on the outside of the gable, it's going to be pushing up in the framing inside. So there's some things that have to happen there. But in general, I wanted to just talk to you about how this framing works so that we can get it done. And I'm going to take this and hide it real quick. In this view, we're going to take this and copy it going down this slope at 1 foot 4 inches or 16 inches. Mirror those over, copy, make sure they're copied. Now we have our framing in. Okay, making sense? Any questions about how that worked? Okay. Now, obviously, these are all not clean. I've got to clean these up like this one, and this one, and that's all be based on the reference plane that we'll choose in the architecture tab. Same thing over and over again. You'll have to do a little bit of redundant work like that. Then we're going to do what's called a subfascia, and we'll take, I guess I'll do it in plan in elevation view. I'm going to do a subfascia. Typically, those don't have to be 2-bys. They could be 1-bys. But what happens is we're going to take this out here and put it on the outside edge. And we'll take it way down, all the way down the length of the roof. So let's take it to there. So this is be a subfascia board. You can kind of see it'll be something that holds the framing in place on the very end. We will also have blocking in between these guys. I wanted to show you kind of how that works. This also on that north elevation view, this piece here is also a subfascia. It's just on the raked end instead of the regular horizontal overhang. So I'm going to go back to my north elevation view, and I'm going to unhide that guy. I think it's that one. Yep. So that I'm going to flip it over on its axis there. Here, so got it on both sides. I still need to clean that up, which I can do right now if I want to. So I can cut this at that plane, cut this at that plane. All right, this fascia right here, I'm going to flip over and use on the other end too. So I'll flip it on that center line right there, and I should have a copy over here now. Yep. So that works fine. One of the things I did since our last class was I actually put some sheathing on that floor because it's part of the framing. When we look at this really closely, this white piece right here, this is sheathing. When we frame our floors, we're going to frame this bottom wall first. We're going to frame it laying down on the floor, then we're going to tilt it up. Then we're going to frame the floor over the top of that. But before we can frame this upper level, we have to put this decking down. So that's part of the framing right there. That decking is an important part. And that decking goes all the way out to the edge before we can put these walls up here on the top. So, and when we get to detailing, we're going to start to see that. We're going to see that, Revit will just draw lines wherever it wants to. But what we want to do is make sure we understand how things work, that the walls go up first, then the floor goes on. Then we have to be able to walk on the floor, and we have to make sure that it stays square. And to do that, we put horizontal sheathing, which is we call decking, onto the floor framing. It holds it square, it makes it so we can work on top of it, and it makes it so we can build another wall on that floor and then tilt it up and have it stay there. Okay. Now it's clear to me as I look at this, just intuitively, we need this corner to transfer down. So I'm probably going to put some stud right there. And I haven't done the framing on this bottom wall yet. I haven't done any of that. And I haven't framed around this window, or that's a mirror, or this door here. So there's a lot of that tedious work I still have to do, and I don't want to take our class time to do it, but I do want to make sure you guys understand how these things work so that you can do it on your own. One of the things that we like to do as architects is make flat spaces that you can walk on top of spaces that you can live in. And the inherent problem with that is that we have to keep the water out of the space below. And to do that, there's tons of different ways to do it. One of the ways is with the way we frame things. But what I want to do is draw this rather than model it, and then maybe come back and model it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take a section view. I guess it's section 1, yeah. And I've drawn it here. What's happening here is that we're running these joists left and right. If we just run regular joists in there, they're going to be flat on the top. So what I'm going to suggest, at least in this model, and there's, like I said, there's lots of ways to frame a roof or a deck over living space, lots of ways to frame it. But for what we're going to talk about is we're going to frame this by cutting the top of this joist off. And we may have to put twice as many joists in. But if we cut the joist at that purple line right there, then it's tapered. We might have to use a taller profile to begin with. We might have to put them at 12 inches on center instead of 16 inches on center. There are several things we might have to do. But what I'm asking you to do in this model is to taper the top of this so that it slopes from the building to the north. I'm going to take some time in a little while to model this, but I'll probably do it and make it optional for you guys to stay in class, but I'll leave it on the recording so that you can come back to it later when you get to this point. As we do that, we're going to have a leftover piece. We're going to have a leftover piece that has the opposite slope to it, and it will be flat up there. So this gray piece right here that I just highlighted is what we'll have left over. It'll be a tapered piece going the other direction. We're going to call those sleepers. So in the meantime, we're going to place, I'm going to maybe hide this purple piece or whatever, delete the purple one. And the flashing, the green is flashing. We'll do that in the detailing exercise later. But this piece right here is plywood. So we're going to place plywood on top of what's left of those joists. So the plywood will be sloped. Then directly over those joists, we're going to place these sleepers back on top where we cut them off from. That then gives us a flat surface, or at least a level surface, then to attach our decking to on top of that. You follow me? Now, when it rains, the water can fall and run between the decking and onto this sloped piece and run out to the north. Now, there's all kinds of flashing and waterproofing to do in addition to that, but these are the bones. The bones have to be in the right place. They have to be sloped properly. We have to be intentional about how these pieces go together. Okay. If we were to stop now, could you go, is there anything you need to know, go as far as I have on this model so far? With these, I mean, obviously you need to go back to the video. You'll have these available to you on Blackboard. And I'm going to go here in a few minutes and place these sleepers on here. Is there anything you have any questions about? Why does this work this way? You know, how do we do this? Any of that kind of stuff?
So are we modeling the entire building with the
Nope.
studs like you're doing right now for the homework?
You're going to do this third of the building, the same one I'm doing.
Okay. And that's for the homework due tomorrow?
No, the homework due tomorrow was the stuff we had we talked about the previous assignment. And this one will be due. I'm gonna try to get you to go as far as you can by Tuesday. And my guess is you won't be finished because this is a lot of work. And we'll push it back another. Once you start doing this, you're gonna have questions. The reason I know that you guys aren't working on this because you don't have questions. So you're not going as far, you're not as far along as you could be. But I don't expect you to be because the last assignment, you're still working on that. I don't expect you to be. But once you roll up your sleeves and get into this, you will have questions. So I'm likely to put this due date at least next Wednesday and maybe even next Thursday so that we can come back and talk about this. I'm not going to move into details until I know that you guys get this. This is details, but I mean the waterproofing and things like that. Okay. Does that answer your question, Connor? Okay. All right. There's one more thing that I want to talk about, just that's different from the other things that we've talked about. I'm going to take this guy just so that we can, yeah, just so that we can talk about it. I'm going to look at the west elevation. I'm sorry, that'll probably be the east elevation. And I'm going to move. See, what we're doing is we're modeling from this to the right, not the glass wall to the left. All right, this right here, this rim board is, we've used a 2x, so I'm just going to use it again. And I'm going to change the shape of it. And I want to reduce it down to probably 2x6. I'm going to go to my 3D view. Put it flush to the inside. Okay. Now, why would we worry about these kinds of things? Why would I want to show you this? Where am I placing these? What's on the other side of the wall? The answer is cabinets. There are cabinets on the other side of the wall. And if we put blocking in there, we'll be able to bolt the cabinet to something sturdier than drywall so that they don't fall off. So we're going to put blocking in there as part of this framing exercise. Now, it might also, when am I going to make you do this? But at this kind of bracing, we're also going to put, if we're doing our jobs right, if the framers are doing theirs right, we're also going to put this kind of framing behind toilet paper holders, behind towel rods, behind grab bars, all of that stuff. And you don't have to draw these, and you'll never do this exercise that we're doing today. You'll never do this again, but I want you to do it once so that you know where every single piece goes and why it's there. Then when you're walking around on a frame site and you've got framers and you're standing in the bathroom, say, hey, you need to put blocking behind the towel bars, and you need to put blocking behind the toilet paper holders and stuff like that, or behind the linen cabinet or something, is to keep things from falling off the wall. Okay. All right. So obviously still got to clean these up so that they're proper. Going to clean bird mouths up all along these guys. Not a big deal. I'm going to get them all done. I'm going to rip this so that I have two pieces. Then I'm going to run them across and put a piece of plywood here. I'm going to put decking on top of my roof, roof decking. So it'll be just like the floor right here, but it'll be sloped, and I'll put it on this deck. So I'll use a 3/4 inch in Revit. I'm going to use 3/4 inch generic roof, and I'm just going to put it up there and use that and call it out as decking for this model. Um, then what we're going to do is we're going to dissociate this. We're going to pull it apart. Okay, we'll just use this view for now. Yeah, this view. Everything is kind of transparent. I think I'll leave it that way for now. I'm going to dissociate this and pull it out away from these walls, away from the model, so that we can see where they came from. And I can take the to be able to take this window too and pull it out. May have to pull this wall apart. There we go. And if not, I won't worry about it. Then, as you know, if you were in I think I taught this in my class. If you were in that one or in your bit class, they probably taught you how to take these walls then and then click the pathway line, and so you can see where it came from. And then we'll take this one and come off the side. Path. Okay. Then we'll go in and we'll do something fun with this. You can, if you're familiar with Revit, you can do backgrounds and things like that and make it pretty nice. I'm going to hide this box, and I'm going to hide these guys. Okay, this is so we'll end up with something like this. So you can see the bones underneath it, where the skin goes. Okay, any questions at this point? Are you whelmed yet? I imagine you will be. I'm interested in getting this right, not getting it fast. So once you've turned in the previous exercise, take a deep breath, take a break, and then get on this one. And start on this one and get as far as you can by Tuesday, because I'm going to start a new topic on Tuesday. And if we need to spend time on this and answer questions, then I'm happy to do it. And then we'll push the deadline, but you need to have something by Tuesday. I'll post. I'll make up my mind on what I'm going to say about the deadline and put that on Blackboard. Um, okay. All right. If you don't have any questions, that's it for today for you having to sit there and watch this. But I am going to leave the recording on and I'm going to move forward with a few other things to clean this up. I don't know if I'm going to talk to myself while I'm doing it or just do it, so that you'll be able to see how I'm cleaning up some of these things and how I'm going to deal with that space over the top of the living space, how we're going to deal with the deck over the top of the living space and that kind of thing. So I'll try to finish that stuff up while I'm sitting here. You're welcome to stay, but you're not required to. You can knock off and finish your assignment. My preference is you finish that other assignment right now, and I'll just keep going and keep the recording on. Any other questions from anybody?
This isn't related to like what we're doing for the assignment right now, but are you gonna eventually go over how you made like the floating like roof and the walls like outside of the building?
Um, I can. Dylan, you're not the only one that hasn't done much Revit. I think what we might do is um, spend a class on that kind of stuff. Um, what days of the week are best for you, Dylan? Do you have any best days?
Like, am I available?
Most flexible, yeah.
Uh, Mondays and Fridays.
Anybody else have that kind of flexibility that wants to focus on the Revit piece a little bit more? Seemed like there was somebody else in the class. In fact, I know there was, but we've got about half of us here right now. Um, let's um, let's email each other back and forth, Dylan, and then I'll post an email to everyone, invite them, and we'll spend a little bit of time on that kind of thing. Um, and I think I have, when I was teaching this over COVID, I think I recorded some lessons that were about how to do that kind of thing. So if worst case scenario, we can send one of those to you or something. But I think what I might do is just do a Revit workshop and make it based on whatever questions you have. And if we don't have a lot of questions on Tuesday, then maybe we do that then. And your next class is at 10:30, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, okay. All right. Well, if you want to stay back right now, I'll go backwards a little bit and I'll show you how to do that. And everybody else, if you'd like, you can knock off or leave your ears on, whatever you want to do. And I'm going to back up here a little bit. I'm going to go back and show how to pull those walls off of how to pull this model apart so that we can get into it a little bit. Thanks, everybody. Please feel free to email or text anytime. I love what I do, love this class. So just let me know. I'm happy to help however I can. Thank you. Dylan, you want to stick around right now?
I'm kind of my internet is going in and out and it's been pretty laggy
Okay.
today.
Yeah, no problem. Let me show you where the
Yeah,
button
it
is real
might be
quick.
better to come back a different day.
That's fine. Let me show you where the button is real quick. If you highlight a
Yeah.
piece, then um, there's this. Well, let me just back up because when these are on the wall or on the model, if I highlight this wall and I come up here to this guy right here above view, it's under the modify tab, and then above the word view, there's this weird little displacement icon. Click on that, then it gives you these pull markers. And I can pull up, I can pull over, I can pull out, I can do whatever I want. And then while it's highlighted, I can also use this path marker, and it draws dashed lines down to where it came from. And I can take these lines actually, and I can change them. I can edit these lines. It's called, these line styles over here, and go straight, or I can do jogged, or I can make them fat or skinny or dotted or dashed or whatever I want to do. change the color of them. But that's roughly how you do it. So
Okay, so basically like Revit is making like the drawn part for you
mhm. Yeah, these are
with
all
that first
pieces.
tool.
Yeah, this was since this is a wall, it's all kind of one thing.
Hmm.
And actually, I can take the wall apart and I can just peel the layers off of the wall if I want to. I can peel the siding off and then the plywood off and then the sheathing off or the waterproofing off and then I can pull it apart into all of its little pieces, as long as Revit recognizes each of them as a piece, and then I can make them transparent or solid so that I can or can't see through it however I want to design it. You can throw a background on it. There's some pretty cool things you can do with it.
Yeah.
So, so my guess is you'll get stuck on some other things before you get to this part anyway. So feel free to holler at me if you get stuck, and if nothing else, we'll just make an appointment to go through some of it.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
You bet. Good luck in your class today. Beto, you need something?
Uh, I was I was just gonna see you working through
Okay.
getting the rest of the video, but
Okay.
I missed the first 10 of the class. It was kind of late today.
I was just explaining that I'm at home today because I have a sister in town that has
Mm.
special needs, and I might need to slip away from that, but so far she's doing good. Um,
Okay.
um, and I was also explaining that I just kind of flipped some of these walls over to the other side, and we're working on gable end today, figuring
Okay.
this gable end out. I can see right there that I still have some more to do. I better get to it here. So I'm just going to trim this up real quick. So much, so much stuff. This is a hard assignment, and there's no doubt about that. But I think um, this assignment is the kind of thing that really helps understand um, how things go together, and then when we do our details over the top of it, it makes more sense. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and the,
Like
the
I'm sure most of us haven't seen this. Uh, we see a wall, we just see what's in front of us.
mhm,
We don't
yeah,
see how that wall is put together.
yeah,
So
and that's probably okay for college. I just want to see you guys successful, and if you're
yeah.
interested, I want to make sure that you get it, because man, once I understood this stuff, boy, I was a lot more um, productive for my boss. I could go out into the field and say, hey, that's not working because of this, and I could draw it right and that kind of thing. It really does help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to go to, I'm not sure how, I think I'll go to this section 2. Yeah. Hmm. Trying to figure out the fastest way to do this, because I want to trim all these guys up because they're a lot easier to read if I can trim them up. So if I cut this guy here, I wonder if I can go to my north elevation and click. Nope, I don't think that worked.
You had placed the reference line on, I think, section 1. Mhm.
Yeah, I put it on a section view, and I wonder if I can do it here. If I can. Play. If I hide this guy. Nope. I don't know how to make this easier. May just not be able to make it easier. May have to just do it the way I've got it set up. All right, my loft here. I'm going to move this section back for now to right there.
There it is.
I'm going to hide my roof. And yeah, okay. I'll just start knocking these off. Modify. I'm going to cut this to here. Cut this to here. And go to the next one. Cut this. Much better. That's what we want it to look like. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is mess with this guy. This one's going to be fun. So can look at this in the east elevation. I think the west would be better. Now, if Irby was doing this, he would just make a model of this piece instead of cut it. And I'm not as good at that as he is. So I think I'm going to do it. I'm just going to cut it. So I'll set a reference plane, say right there. Come on, what's going on? Oh, I forgot to hide the roof. Okay, this guy. So we're going to cut this to there. There we go. That's better. Okay. And if I go to the east elevation, I've still got the reference plane. I have this guy in the way. I'm going to place these at 12 inches on center. See what that's doing. Working. Yep. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take one of these guys and copy it over and cut it differently. Let's see. This one, I want the top to go away. Or I want the bottom to go away and we'll keep the top. So I'm going to change this to a 2x6 probably. And then take this and offset it 3/4 of an inch. Can't do that, can I? So I'll make another one. I'll start off with 1 inch parallel and see. Make it 3/4 of an inch. There we go. So this I'm going to cut to there. It's keeping the top or keeping the bottom, isn't it? Okay. All right, I'm going to model this in place. I'm going to see if I can model it in place. Sometimes I do this and sometimes it frustrates me. So I'm going to do an in place mass. I'll try to anyway. Make these sleepers. Come on, Derek. Let's see. We'll try this one more time. Call it a sleeper. Let's set my work plane is going to be that. And I'll use and make that 1.5 inches. Call it good. I'm going to look at the north elevation if I can. Let's see. I'm going to make this the same color that I did my other stuff. When I cut it, it's going to be solid. Okay. So it should read, that's too transparent. How do I get that out of there? It's transparent. Oh well, I'm not going to worry about that because it's working. All right, so now I've got that. Let me see if I can go back to my loft floor plan view and copy this. Okay, so we've got our sleepers in there. Gap. Now I'm going to create a deck on top of that. Let's go to my loft floor plan again. Go to architecture, floor. Where's floor? Right there. And I'm going to make a 3/4 inch generic. Oh, there's one right there. I have 3/4 inch generic. And I'm going to place it right here. Say okay. And I know it's not going to be in the right place, elevation wise or sloped wise. So I'm going to want it sloped too. So I think I can do that after I create it. Okay, so if I go here and I go to add point, I can take this point. And I can say I want that to drop an inch. And I'm not sure that I do, but I need to move it to something anyway. Then I can go back to my elevation view and see how it's looking. My 3D view. It's sloping, but not the way I want it to. Okay, let's see.
Sloping on the sides.
Yeah, I think, what did I do wrong here? Is it that one? That's minus 1 inch. That's 1 inch, not
Yeah.
minus. Yeah. All right, so now I think I can mess with this and actually take it up to where I want it. It's close. Now, let me see if I can get it to match there. Oh, it looks like I need to come up. Shit. I'm making things difficult on myself. I should have just drawn it in. All right, so if I go here, I think, can I modify my sub-elements? Yeah. So I'm just going to take this guy and to right there. And then take this guy and move it to right there. We should be good. Don't you think? Yes. Okay. Okay, now we can kind of see what we're doing. Okay, so I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is put some decking on there. And I'm going to change species, but I'm going to go ahead and use the lumber that I already have.
So is that how those stay? Like on
These sleepers?
projects? Yeah.
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to rip them, and then these guys go down first. And then we'll put blocking in there like we did in some of the other places,
Mhm.
like this blocking here.
For the cabinets, yeah.
Yeah, we can use the same kind of material. And in fact, why don't I just do that real quick? Um, I'll take something like this guy right here. I'll go to section 1, I guess. And set the rotation to 0 and see what happens. There we go. So you put this in here, then it'll keep them from falling over on each other like dominoes. And we won't it won't be the whole length of it. It'll be blocking between each one, not, you know. So I think I'll try to do that right for the sake of the class. You guys can do it the way you want to, but if I then I could look in my north elevation view and get it all dialed in. So this piece of blocking the framers would cut a bunch of these guys and just stick them in there to keep those guys from falling over.
But there'll be like more of them, right?
Mm-hmm. Put them at the edge anyway. And
They're just at the edge, or do they like also?
it depends on how long the span is.
Mm.
If and I'm not too worried about that. Is if you understand that, hey, you know, what if these put them in the middle? Yeah, we do some in the middle too, but it's only like what 12 feet over or something, and we may not. We may put some in there, but I don't know the rule of thumb on that honestly. But this gives us the space up above this gives us room for this to breathe. So we'll have an air vent over there if we need it. We may decide just to insulate it solid, but for now we just need to keep it from falling over, and that's what
Yeah.
that does.
Um,
And then these guys, what will happen is this piece right here, the decking, it will waterproof it first with one layer of single ply roofing. Then we're going to come in with these guys and run screws down through there into the joist below. We're going to come back with another layer of one, and this will be adhesive. So we'll stick this over the top, and it'll be another layer of waterproofing, and then we'll run our decking across that and screw right into the top of these guys, and that layer of waterproofing will stealth when you drive a screw through it, it will actually waterproof the edge of the screw so it won't leak. It'll the membrane itself becomes a waterproof gasket. So I'm going to go ahead and put decking on top of here just real quick, just so that we can do it. I don't know, not absolutely critical, but I think it's helpful to kind of know how things are going to work. So let's see. I think I'll do that in a section view. See, these are annotative, so they're not. So I'm going to take this and copy it over again. Rotate it. and change it to a 2x4 to a 2x6 because I like that look better on decks.
I'll be right back, Professor.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Okay, I've got all the decking in on top of there. So that's kind of how it works. That's that assembly.
How does this happen? The sleeper over the cutout of the for the joist for the floor joist.
How does that work right there?
Yeah.
Well,
Are
you
they
put, go ahead.
so it's they cut out the joist, right, for the floor,
Mm-hmm. You
and
keep the
then they
joist
put
and you rip it at an angle and you keep the leftover. That's it right there.
okay, and then but then do they just how do they nail those together though?
Through this sleeper
Yeah.
straight down.
Oh, and then would there be like some blocking in there too? Would those
No,
like
typically you wouldn't need it up here for the sleepers.
no?
And I've exaggerated this. It doesn't have to be, this floor doesn't have to be sloped as much as I've sloped it. It needs to be
Okay.
1/16 of an inch, a foot probably, but that's probably enough. And this is exaggerated just to show the principle of it. But
Oh, okay.
this wouldn't be quite as thick. So a 16 penny nail would probably work all the way through, or certainly a 4-inch deck screw.
So it's only just to like keep it level, right? Those
Mhm.
sleepers are only
Yeah.
used to level the
just
floor.
Right. It's just so that these guys are all level.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I see.
The water that gets through here that rains and then drips through the decking then falls on this surface and can get out between
Yeah.
the sleepers.
Mm.
And we can design a fascia system on here so you can't even see underneath there. So it'll look really nice. We'll design a really nice fascia through around there.
Yeah.
So I am going to reset that, and I'm going to reset this one. So, all right. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. I'm going to go ahead and finish this out and do the interior walls and everything, but and I'll put together an assignment here pretty soon so that everybody knows pretty much what needs to be done.
Yeah.
But I think this is a pretty thorough model. It should. Do you agree that it kind of helps show how the whole framing goes together? I mean,
Oh yeah.
you've worked in an office for long enough now that I think you can see that most of the structure is here.
Oh yeah.
There's a few things that we could do differently. Well, a lot of things we could do the whole thing differently, but this is pretty traditional
Yeah.
way to do things.
Yeah, it does help out a lot. It paints a picture to yeah, basically what goes in between the walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to your blocking notice or note, these guys, we would have blocking between some of these, but the interesting thing is, since this beam is here, it serves as blocking. And
Yeah.
and so this may not be a long enough span that we need anymore. And I really don't know the rule of thumb, but framers do. And to understand what blocking is the most important thing.
I've also seen that they use like some bridging
Yeah, just
sometimes.
cross pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah, 1x2s or something. Yeah, that works too.
that works too.
Yeah, the purpose is just to keep it from racking.
Yeah, from tilting over.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, I guess we will see you on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And, holler at me if you have any questions.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good, Professor.
Thanks, Beto.
Thank you.
We'll see you
Have
soon.
a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.